नमस्कार दोस्तों, आज हम लोग एक बहुत महत्वपूर्ण विषय के साथ आपके सामने आए हैं। आपको तो पता ही है कि भारत में एक बहुत बड़ा आयोजन होने जा रहा है, यानी कि G20 का समिट। आप समझते हैं समिट का तात्पर्य क्या होता है? तो आपने देखा बहुत सारी G20 की मीटिंग्स हुई, बहुत सारे शहरों में हुई, लेकिन समिट क्या होता है और समिट का महत्व क्या होता है? वो ये है कि जब हेड ऑफ द गवर्नमेंट्स या हेड ऑफ द स्टेट्स, यानी कि किसी भी देश में जो सबसे शिखर पर सत्ता में लोग होते हैं, जब वो लोग आपस में मिलते हैं तो उसे समिट कहते हैं। इसीलिए हिंदी में इसे कहा जाता है शिखर वार्ता। तो पहले तो कंफ्यूज नहीं होना है कि ये जो इतनी सारी मीटिंग्स हो रही हैं इतने सारे शहरों में, और ये जो समिट है इसमें क्या फर्क है। तो अब शिखर वार्ता या समिट, व्हाट इज इट्स इंपॉर्टेंस? क्योंकि ये एक हाईएस्ट लेवल पर डिसीजन मेकिंग बॉडी हुई, तो अल्टीमेटली जो भी ये मीटिंग्स हुई G20 में, दो तरीके की मीटिंग्स हमने देखी, जो अधिकारी स्तर पे हुई यानी कि सरकार के स्तर पर, और साथ ही साथ सिविल सोसाइटी के स्तर पर। आप जानते ही हैं कि आवर प्राइम मिनिस्टर इज नोन फॉर डूइंग थिंग्स इन अ मिशन मोड, या एक मूवमेंट के ढंग से, एक अभियान के ढंग से माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी अपनी विजन को आगे रखते हैं, एक कार्य योजना को रखते हैं, अपने नेतृत्व को आगे रखते हैं और लोगों को जोड़ते हैं उस प्रक्रिया में। और इसलिए एक बहुत खास बात देखी गई, जिस स्तर पर सिविल सोसाइटी के लेवल पर C20 की मीटिंग्स में पार्टिसिपेशन हुआ, लोगों ने जिस ढंग से इसमें हिस्सा लिया, तो ये एक बहुत बड़ा, मतलब ये एक मीटिंग ही नहीं, मैं तो कहूँगी कि ये एक बहुत बड़ा अभियान बन करके सामने आया है और भारत की अपनी विशिष्टताओं को समेटे हुए ये G20 का समिट है। तो हमको G20 के बारे में कई चीज़ें जानना होंगी। आपको पता ही है कि सितंबर में G20 का समिट होगा और उसमें कुछ बहुत इम्पॉर्टेंट डिसीशंस लिए जाएंगे। वो डिसीशंस इम्पॉर्टेंट क्यों होंगे, उनका क्या इम्पोर्टेंस है, उसका क्या सिग्निफिकेंस है? उसका सबसे इम्पॉर्टेंट सिग्निफिकेंस है कि आगे जो ग्लोबलाइजेशन है, ग्लोबलाइजेशन वर्ल्ड में आज के टाइम में एक सबसे बड़ी घटना आप कह सकते हैं, एक सबसे बड़ा विकास कह सकते हैं। सभी देशों का भविष्य ग्लोबलाइजेशन से जुड़ा हुआ है। तो ये ग्लोबलाइजेशन का फ्यूचर क्या है? अगर हम देखें इन द एकेडमिक डिस्कोर्सेस, आज एकेडमिक डिस्कोर्सेस में सबसे बड़ा मुद्दा यही है, व्हाट इज द फ्यूचर ऑफ ग्लोबलाइजेशन, वेदर ग्लोबलाइजेशन विल वर्क or it will die a premature death. This will be decided in the G20 summit, which is going to take place in our country in New Delhi. So hopefully you have understood the context. और क्या खास है अगर हम भारत के दृष्टिकोण से देखें, आप देखते हैं कि आज का जो वर्ल्ड ऑर्डर है वो पूरी तरीके से बहुत ही ज़्यादा chaotic सिनेरियो में है। There is a division, there are so many fault lines on so many grounds that world is appearing a very very chaotic situation। और इस वर्ल्ड के ये जो टुकड़े हो रहे हैं कंसेप्चुअली, कोई कल्चर या कहीं रिलीजन या कहीं क्लैश ऑफ सिविलाइजेशंस है, कहीं रीजनलाइजेशन है, तो इन सभी टुकड़ों को एक साथ ला करके इनको जोड़ पाना, इनको एक दिशा निर्देश दे पाना, ये जो एक जिम्मेदारी है वो आज भारत के कंधों पर है। तो भारत के लिए ये एक और भी चुनौतीपूर्ण अवसर है, वेयर इंडिया हैज टू डिस्प्ले इट्स लीडरशिप स्किल, whether it is a time when India is now going to take its rightful place, which we always thought in the Committee of Nations. तो ये जो आगामी G20 समिट है, इसको कई पर्सपेक्टिव से देखने की ज़रूरत है। इंडिया की तरफ से क्या विजन आता है, क्या वर्ल्ड ऑर्डर आगे जाकर के शेप लेगा, किस तरीके से इंडिया कैन एक्ट एज अ ब्रिज टू बिल्ड एंड रीबिल्ड द ऑर्डर, और सिर्फ रीबिल्ड नहीं करना है, एक बेटर वर्ल्ड ऑर्डर विच टेक्स इनटू कंसिडरेशन the interest of our coming generations, which take care of the interest of the developing world, which takes care of the interest of climate and many other things. So the idea behind is that how working in concert with each other under the leadership of India, we can remake the world order which is inclusive, which is equitable, and which is sustainable. So for me, this summit will be the test of India's leadership, and we wish all the best to our leaders, to our Prime Minister, and I believe that we will definitely show the exceptional leadership. Now let us talk about some other things, because in the coming weeks you will be seeing that the newspapers are flooded with articles on G20. I have seen students reading the articles but not understanding, because what they miss is the historical context, the contemporary context, and certain necessary concepts, terminologies, and discourses to make sense of these articles. So first of all, from where this concept of G20 has come into picture? Now I can link it with the way global international political economy has evolved. After Second World War, an attempt has been made to establish the liberal international economic order. You know the pillars of these institutions. The first pillar is, of course, WTO, which was at that time conceived as ITO, but could not materialize, and this was replaced by GATT, and finally in 1995 emerged WTO. Now the other two institutions, one is IMF and other is the World Bank, and together they form the pillar of liberal international economic order. The students of international relations may be aware of the hegemonic stability theory. What does this hegemonic stability theory tells? It tells that there is no invisible hand in international economy. It means the liberal international economy has to be maintained. There has to be someone to manage the show, to form the rules, to enforce those rules. As per the theory, it can be one country, it can be group of countries. So what we see in terms of evolution of international economy, that first of all US, because US alone was in that position playing the role, but later on it was realized that as the volumes of trade has increased as the issues of trade have increased, it will not be possible for US alone to run the show. And US alone cannot take the burden of running the economies. And hence, first emerged the concept that is known as G7 countries representing the industrial north. And then, after the end of Cold War, we all know we have entered into the stage of globalization, a global expansion of liberal international order. And as a result of globalization, some new players have emerged, which have become a very important part of international economic order. Every day you hear the terms emerging economies. I believe that you all understand what are the emerging economies. If not, then they are the places which are going to be the next big thing in international economy in terms of investment, in terms of market, and primarily places for investment. And gradually it was realized that these countries will also have to be included. For example, the Asian tigers, the BRICS economies, because now you need a more number of partners to manage this particular platform, to manage the global economies, to decide the direction, and thus emerged the concept of G20. You also need to remember a very important event that has expedited the process, and that is the global financial crisis. Now, before global financial crisis, in 1997, there was an Asian financial crisis, and after this, the global financial crisis and all these developments led to the realization that we have to include this number of countries, and thus G20 has come into existence. Gradually, from the foreign ministers meet to the summit level, and now G20 has become a vital component of global international political economic order. Today, G20 assumes all the bigger importance. And why so? Because it is going to set the direction of world trade. Why I am emphasizing all the important? Because if you see that today WTO is in the state of deadlock. So WTO is not going to be a framework or a platform anymore for deciding the future of talks. Rather, G20 is going to decide how and in what direction the multilateralism in trade talks will move. So what exactly is the difference between WTO and G20? So WTO is an organization with a rigid set of rules, whereas G20 is a forum. You understand what's a forum? A place for discussions which are more of a voluntary commitments, but they provide certain directions. So from multiple angle, G20 is important. We have to wait and watch that what will be the final outcome. Hopefully, this analysis has helped you in understanding the G20 in perspective. What is its significance? Now, let us have look at some factual aspects of G20 from the perspective of your exams. Fine. So, G20 summit, what are we going to discuss here? What is G20? I told you, origin and evolution, its summit and presidency, the membership, working, issues addressed, India's concerns and India's interests. Fine. So one thing is interesting. Is G20 comprised of 20 countries? The answer is no, because the 20th participant of G20 is European Union, a regional organization. Besides G20 summits, almost all major financial institutions, they also participate in the dialogue. And one thing is very interesting, that since beginning, one economy, that is Spain, it has been a permanent guest member of G20. So this is something unique. Remember it from your prelims point of view. Fine. So what is G20? A informal group of 90 countries and EU, along with the representatives from IMF and World Bank. So which type of economies they are? A mixed of advanced economies and the emerging economies. And what is its purpose? To set the rules and to define the direction of the global economy. Now together, if we see the profile and why it is important for everyone to be concerned with G20, is it represents 80% of the world GDP, 75% of the international trade. Just imagine 19 countries plus EU together talking about 80, they represent the 80% of the world trade and 75% of the 80% of GDP, 75% of the trade and 60% of the world population. So these basic points, basic facts points are also very important, so that you can later on understand the articles, you can understand the language, that what is what in G20. Okay, so it was established in 1999 after Asian financial crisis. What type of organization this is? I just discussed. It's a forum. So initially forum of finance ministers, and then it was upgraded. Fine. Now what is the purpose at that point of time? To discuss the global financial crisis or Asian financial crisis and how we can come out of it. But now its scope of activities have increased from geoeconomics to geopolitics. Fine. So now it's a platform which has become a platform where wide range of issues are discussed. And why wide range of issues are discussed? Because everything is very much interlinked with each other. We cannot see the things in a very compartmentalized manner. Fine. And the real thrust for G20 came with 2008 global financial crisis. Now in G20 summits, it is important that the first G20 summit, means head of the state level summit, took place in 2008. You should be aware of the concept of Troika. So Troika consists of the existing presidency, which is at present India, the past presidency, which is Indonesia, and the future presidency, that is Brazil. And they need to work together and help each other and to coordinate to maintain the continuity. This is group of countries. Now tracks, you have to understand the track. Is besides the summit level talks, two you must have heard in newspaper, Sherpas and all. And so one very important track is finance minister track, led by the finance ministers and central bank governors, and the Sherpa track. So what does this Sherpa term means in international diplomacy? So this Sherpa term represents the special envoys. Fine. The special envoys of the head of the governments, head of the states, means they are very critical in shaping the term of discourse. Fine. So this Sherpa track is there. So I believe that when you read newspaper from now onwards, you understand what does this Sherpa track is. And now, what are the major issues? So the issues which have been discussed, which will be discussed, and why? Because I again said we stay, or the world is very integrated. So of course the major issue is economic, trade, fiscal policy, financial, health, markets, but health, climate change, energy, terrorism, agriculture. So a range of issues have to be discussed in G20, and already this culture had started. Now, India's leadership, a very interesting thing, you should be aware of the G20 logo, the beautiful logo representing lotus, our national flower, and the 7 petals of lotus are representing the 7 continents. So there are 7 continents, but we live in one earth. This is a single spaceship. As an Indians, we have never believed in the boundaries. We have always believed in the concept of VasudhaivaKutumbakam, and this is exactly the symbol. This symbol is representing our culture, our tradition, and our world views. In any of your exams, they always ask a question on the world order and India's vision of world order. So India's vision of the world order is rooted in our past, and it reflects our vision. And this G20 logo, that is VasudhaivaKutumbakam, our belief in one earth, one family, one future, is the representation. This is the best way you can explain India's vision of the world order. And especially, I think this is going to be the biggest test of Prime Minister Modi's leadership at the global level. And once again, from the entire country, we wish him all the best, all the very best, and we want India comes out very clearly in a very recognizable term with G20 summit as the global leadership, a place which we have dreamt and which we truly deserve. And as Prime Minister Modi has discussed the theme, one earth, one family, one future, the theme takes into account the recent changes in human circumstances and which we have to deal collectively. Now, G20 logo I have discussed. It represents the 3 colors of our national flag, the significance of lotus. We believe why this lotus and the earth over it. It shows that amidst the adversity, we will rise again. We will rise. We will once again be in a position that we will be in a world which will not be pessimistic, which will not be divisive, but a world which is able to overcome the difficulties. And we believe that India's efforts are going to take its shape. Now, just certain fact points is, along with these countries, these regional organizations also participate, and this year Bangladesh, Egypt, Mauritius, Netherlands, Nigeria, Singapore, Oman, Spain and UAE are invited as a guest, and Spain, as I said, is a permanent guest almost. And one thing you should remember, that it is India's leadership that African Union's participation has been very significant. It shows India's commitment for the Indo-African century, India's concerns for the developing world. Now, who our or our foreign minister has set the agenda. He has given what will be the agenda, and it is available at your Ministry of External Affairs site. So to be very precise, what will be the agenda? So the upcoming issues will include women empowerment, digital public infrastructure, health, agriculture, tourism, climate finance, circular economy, global food security, energy security, green hydrogen, disaster risk reduction, resilience, and fight against economic crime and multilateral reforms. Now, analysis of India's G20 presidency. So, it is something very, very special. It is not a routine presidency because it is happening at a very critical point of time. Now, why it is important? Because world is facing an extreme geopolitical and geoeconomic crisis, and it's not just a threat. I have written threat to multilateralism, but you know that multilateralism is doomed now, and maybe this G20 summit is the last attempt. It is the, I think, should be seen as attempt to bring the multilateralism back on track, because without multilateralism we cannot sustain the challenges. Once I would like to quote here one of the greatest philosophers of India, Aurobindo Ghosh. And Aurobindo Ghosh has held that if we do not listen to the voice of nature, nature destroys us. And what is nature's voice? He says that aggregation. Aggregation is the law of nature. So until and unless we come together and solve this problem collectively, it will be very, very difficult, and it is going to be I'll say there is not a single country which can manage these challenges. So multilateralism is no more a luxury. Multilateralism is the need of an hour, and I believe that multilateralism will be brought back on track, and we will be able to re-establish the order amidst the current global disorder. Fine. So this is going to establish India's rising profile, and I believe that this particular note will help you in understanding G20, its significance, certain facts, and we will come again with one or more videos on this particular topic for your holistic understanding. Thank you.